I love to talk about nutrition and all of that, but today I'm going to focus more on food. So you've probably heard all of these wonderful, amazing things that happens when you eat a whole food plant-based diet, just from whatever hours you've spent so far in this amazing, wonderful conference. So today, instead of talking about the benefits, I want to talk more about, like, now that you have this fabulous information, how do you implement this? How do you make this a part of your life? And I'm going to talk about all the details, the nutrition and the food part, the delicious part, and kind of dig deep into that. But of course, I have to start with one slide just to summarize just some of the myriad health advantages of eating a whole food plant-based diet. There is so much in the literature that is expanding on a regular basis. I can't even believe the most amazing things that keep coming out every single day. And but this is like a summary slide of the benefits that have been really well substantiated over many, many years. And that is that a plant-based diet is the only diet that we've ever seen that actually reverses advanced stage cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. It's also associated with a lower body mass index, lower body fat, lower overall mortality, and mortality from ischemic heart disease, reduced medication requirements. This is one of my favorite ones because I was not taught this in graduate school or in my clinical rotations, that you could ever get off medications or reduce medication use. My goal was, what I was taught to be my goal was to mitigate the need to increase medication, to just slow down the disease process. But results are typical. And I see my clients regularly get off their medications so quickly, so amazingly, that I have to have them contact their physician prior to starting with me and alert the physician that this may happen. Because, you know, if you're reducing your medication while you've got high blood pressure and you're on the medications or high blood sugar, it could actually be kind of risky. So it's quite extraordinary. I see it all the time and it makes me very, very happy. And the research supports it. So it's really amazing. It's also associated, of course, with sustainable weight management. And I'll talk about this in my next talk. I'm going to talk about the Choose You Now diet, I think next week. But weight loss and weight management, you could lose weight in a lot of different ways, but a whole food plant-based diet is a really sustainable, health promoting, I think it's the best way. It's also associated with the reduced incidence of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high blood sugar, reduced risk of certain cancers, especially colorectal cancer, reduced obesity, inflammatory markers, because this is the most anti-inflammatory way to eat. We're going to talk about that too. So basically, a plant-based diet supports living longer, not just living longer. Okay, here is my 3-step simple approach to transitioning to a plant-based diet. Plan, practice, persist. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be really super simple. And I recommend starting out super simply. For example, start with what you know. You know, we've grown up or we've lived in a world where we were eating things that were plant-based, but we didn't really kind of think of it as plant-based. Like, for instance, oatmeal or a PB&J or pasta with marinara sauce or a lentil chili. There's so many things that we've eaten over the years that were just naturally plant-based. We just kind of didn't put a name on it. So gravitate towards what you know, the familiar. That makes things really easy. The other thing is, most of us are really creatures of habit. We may vary, like our breakfast, maybe 1 or 2 different breakfasts every day, maybe 3 to 4 different lunches, maybe 5 to 6 different dinners in a week. But we are so creatures of habit that if you think about it like that, you really only need to find maybe 8 or 10 new recipes or recipes you already know that are already plant-based that you love. So you only need a few baseline recipes to make this work ideally for you. And this is really super easy. So nowadays, oh my goodness, when I did this, you know, there really wasn't a lot of internet access or at all. But so I would go through cookbooks and I had to kind of figure it out. Now there are hundreds of thousands, at least, of recipes at the touch of your finger. So you could find anything you could ever want, you could find plant-based now online. So you find a recipe, you try it. If you love it, what I used to do is I'd put a little heart on it and I put it in a pile. If I didn't love it, I would either try to change it and see if it worked. If it didn't work, toss it and move on to the next one. There's no limit. We're going to talk about all the options. So find your recipes that you love, 8 or 10 of them, and then practice, right? You get comfortable with making those recipes and then, you persist. So if you want to start building in new recipes into your repertoire and just kind of cycling things in and out that you love. And then you can kind of broaden your skills. You can take a cooking class, or if you're already a chef, you could just kind of explore and expand. And it's super fun in the kitchen to kind of like figure that out. In fact, I didn't know how to cook ever. And then when I had to write my first book, and I had 6 weeks to write an entire book and 50 recipes, and I was a mom of 2 little kids, and I had to teach myself cooking and recipe development. And I fell in love with it because it was so much fun. And there's so much you could do in the kitchen, which we're going to talk more about later. So anyway, plan, practice, persist. Simple, simple. I like to think of it kind of like learning a new language. How many of you have learned a new language and you have to learn some new letters, right? So maybe some new letters. Sometimes it's the same letters, just looked a little different. So maybe some words. So think about that, like the ingredients, like maybe you haven't tried jackfruit or caviar lentils or red lentils, or I don't know, name a fruit or a vegetable or something you have never tried, daikon radish. And you start to string these together into recipes, right? You could follow the template. You don't have to make it all up. That's kind of the real exciting part, is that someone's already made it up for you. So you put it together, you find these recipes that you love, the new words and sentences and paragraphs, and you start to speak in that language, right? You start to recognize things. You start to go to a restaurant and go, oh, I could put this meal together. And then eventually, like anything, you become fluent. And once you're fluent, it's super simple. It's the way you think. You kind of like, you're speaking that language in your head, you start to like kind of translate in your head. And that's how it becomes really comfortable. But like most of us, we were raised on a standard Western diet. I was, with meat in the center of the plate, a little bit of vegetable that was never really that good, and a little bit of starch or something that was okay. And that's what we're used to seeing. And now we just have to reinvent the plate or the bowl and think about it in a different way. It's just learning a new language, looking at things a little differently. It's quite exciting. And if you think about it as a real positive, fun adventure of, ooh, what could I try now? It can be a really positive, wonderful, transformative experience. So this may be a vegan diet. These foods are all technically vegan, and they're all animal free, but these are not health promoting foods. The future for veganism looks more like something like, not exactly, but plants, whole plants. And it's amazing what we could do with a diet of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. But this is such a different day and age. So it's like anything you could eat, you could find vegan now. Anything. Cookies, candies, burgers, everything you could, shakes. There's everything out there. Candies, everything you could possibly get. Nuggets. There's just everything now vegan, which is fabulous. I love it because people are more willing to transition to eating this way if they see something super familiar and they can kind of transition using those foods. And it's great if you want to treat food. There's nothing better. Now there's vegan restaurants everywhere. I can't believe the little remote places I found vegan options around the world. So it's like never before has it been this easy to eat vegan. However, I'm a little concerned about people that see these new products as staple foods. And the reason for that is, for the first time in my career, and I've been teaching plant-based nutrition for almost 17 years. I go based on my daughter. She's going to be 17 this summer. I can't believe it. That's crazy. But anyway, I started right when she was born. And now in the last, I want to say 5 years since these products have become so ubiquitous, I am seeing people come to me, vegans who are coming to me with the same health issues as I see with the omnivorous clients. People are coming to me with high blood pressure and excess weight that they can't lose, or they're gaining weight, or high cholesterol, things that I never saw before with someone that was on a plant-based diet. So that's a concern of mine. And the bigger picture of that is a lot of people come to this way of eating for the health reasons, because of all these incredible advantages of the health benefits of eating this way. And if the literature starts to show no difference between a vegan diet and an omnivorous diet, when they usually it's stratified and they're comparing people on a vegan diet to a vegetarian diet, to a pescatarian diet, to an omnivorous diet, usually that's how it looks like in the literature. If you start to see them kind of blur, kind of like what happened with cholesterol and statins, it's not going to be as exciting for people. They're not going to be like, oh, well, I should eat this way because it'll be super healthy. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I hope one of my messages is to make those foods that are, the hyper palatable foods, the ones that are on the marketplace that are filled with oils and sugars and all those things and flours and all that stuff. We'll talk about that later, is to make those treats and infrequent, and rather, spend a day of deliciousness enjoying something like that, going to a special restaurant and having a treat meal like that, rather than making those your staple foods.